Hi,
Hi,
thank you for making the time to join us today.
welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. Any opportunity I get to talk about matters to do with youth and addiction issues, I always appreciate. Yeah.
So, kindly introduce yourself.
Yes. How do I start? I'm Crispus Kimaru. Most people maybe who know me by Chris Kim Recovery. I'm in recovery from sex and alcohol addiction. Most people know the alcoholism part. Most don't know about the sex part. And I'm 40 years, a father of one, and I'm dating. So I'm out of the market. Yeah. And I'm also an addiction counselor. I deal with the chemical dependency. I'm a manager at a rehab, Resolutions Recovery Center in Kahawa West. And I also do a lot of mental health awareness, both on social media and physically, churches, schools, all those. Yeah.
Okay. So, how has your childhood or past informed your life now?
I would say in so many ways, both negatively and positively, because for me, um, maybe growing up around people who are drinking, one way or the other, led to my alcohol addiction. And then from the alcohol addiction came the cross addiction to sex. And that's where things went wrong, went south. Because anytime I would have a drink, for me, it wasn't fun until I slept with someone. And you see, you can't have so many relationships. So for me, actually, let me just be candid enough. It wasn't normal relationships. It was mostly in a brothel where you pay for sex. And of course, you're introduced to a certain um, payment mode, but now you can't maybe afford it. So you keep going down up to a point where now you are begging for sex from even prostitutes, or if they even know you, to a point where they can even give sex on credit. Yeah, it was that bad. Yeah. But now I can laugh about it because I know there's somebody out there listening and watching, and maybe they are thinking, Kwani, am I the only one going through this? Am I the only one suffering from this compulsion to have sex? Am I the only one? But when they hear me speak out openly, then they'll be comfortable. Maybe to seek help, to talk to someone.
So, how young were you when you got into alcohol and sex addiction?
Alcohol use, there's a difference between alcohol use, Nema, and alcohol addiction. Alcohol use, we all start as fun, and it can stay that way for so many people. But for some, we have predisposing factors where you end up sinking into addiction because of one reason or the other. Maybe you have underlying issues, emotional or psychological issues, or even mental health issues that you are trying to numb or you are trying to self-medicate. So you end up becoming dependent on alcohol, both physiologically and psychologically. So at the end of the day, while others are having fun, you end up maybe over abusing alcohol, and with time, your tolerance also grows. You also become now physically and physiologically dependent. So there is no getting out of it. It now controls you because you are rewiring the brain. So from 19, that's when I started drinking. By 22, I always say by 22, when I was in the university, Moi University, I was already in addiction. I was one of those people you find sleeping outside, screaming. And at the same age, because I remember I was in Moi University first year, that was the 2000 and second year, 2003. That's when I experienced, sex, paid sex. And to me, it was like nirvana, like, oh, you can pay for sex. I don't have to struggle with the relationships. You see, I was a small boy and I didn't even know matters of sex and relationships and girlfriends. I was shy, and I felt I was not masculine enough. So here I was discovering that, oh, you can pay, you don't have to go for dates and send letters. Oh, those days we didn't have phones. You used to send letters. You don't have to beg. You don't have to commit yourself and do all this. Then it was like nirvana for me, you know. And it felt so good that I remember the first day I went back, you know, and after the experience, we were in a bar, of course. And after the sex, you know, in the brothels, there is always a bar where you remove the shame, as we say, yeah, and then you go to the brothel. So in the brothel, after the experience, I went back to the bar and I was like, wow, that was good. So I took a few more drinks and I went back there looking for the same lady.
More you.
Yeah, and I was told, oh, she's inside with someone else, and I felt bad. And I asked this other lady, so would you mind if we go with you? She told me, yeah, hii ni biashara, this is a business, so let's go. And I was like, wow. I didn't know that I was thinking. I was, you know, playing with fire, because what happened in my brain, what I came to know later, is that my brain, you see, your brain records some of these, any of the pleasurable moments you have, and anything around it. And that's why you see people falling into relationships. That's why people become addicted, because the alcohol gives you pleasure. The weed, anything you are using or abusing, gives you pleasure. And the brain records that. So the brain reward circuitry wants you to keep doing that because it's pleasurable. And any other part of the brain involved in the reward wants you to keep doing it, however destructive it is. Now, something else that that happens is anything associated with the substance or whatever you are doing that is fun is also registered in the long-term memory. So for me, it was the drinking, and then other than the drinking, the sex part. So I would drink, and now my friends used to tell me I would be going from bar to bar, hopping all over. What they didn't know, or what I didn't know, was I was looking for sex, or cheap sex, or a woman, or, you know, just to calm myself down. Because that's when I would feel like, yeah, now I'm good. And sometimes it was not even, it wasn't pleasurable sex. It was just maybe that feeling, that feeling that you have conquered or something like that. That feeling that you are a man, I'm a man, I've done it. And now I would continue drinking. Remember, I was already in addiction. Now this started as fun also, the cross addiction, but it went even further, became almost killed me. It's by the grace of God that I'm seated here with you, because sometimes I would even go for raw sex without condoms. I would even pay for more to experience that. Yeah.
So you mentioned predisposing factors that lead some people into addiction. So what are some of these predisposing factors?
When it comes to mostly substance abuse, mostly alcohol, and studies have shown that the genetic makeup, heredity, if you come from a family where you have a history of alcohol addiction, not alcohol use, alcohol addiction, which is a disease, it's identified as a disease, that's one of the risk factors. So it doesn't mean that even if you drink, you'll have to become an addict, but it means you're predisposed. It's the same thing as coming from a family with diabetes, hypertension. Studies have been done that if your lineage had that problem, then you're also predisposed. But you also make choices. You can decide not to drink. You can decide to drink and, of course, control your life and have a balance. That means you might not end up abusing alcohol or becoming an addict, or basically using alcohol to self-medicate. So that is one of the main risk factors. Early age of exposure. If you are below 25 and you are playing with drugs or alcohol, remember the human brain develops up to the age of 25. So if you start smoking weed, using alcohol, stuff like sex, playing with the sex and all gambling and betting, all these, then you are interfering with the development of your brain. You see, what happens in the brain is the most basic or primal parts are the ones that develop early, like the amygdala, for instance. This is an emotional part, the part that controls emotions, like fear and aggression. They develop early. The part that controls the executive functions, like learning and making judgments, inhibitions, that is the prefrontal cortex, the uppermost part of your brain, develops last. So if you are drinking and and you start drinking and smoking or sex and gambling, basically you'll be making decisions using the mostly the amygdala. That is the part that only deals with basic emotions and mostly negative emotions, fear, aggression, such kind of negative emotions. The prefrontal cortex is not yet fully developed. Actually, by starting using substances early, then you are even affecting the development of your prefrontal cortex, the part that deals with making sound judgments. That's why you see most people who started drinking early, most people who started gambling and betting and other forms of addiction or addictive behaviors, they have a problem stopping. They mostly become addicted. Yeah, anyone I talk to, even in the rehab where I work, where I manage, you find they started either drinking, smoking in primary school or high school. That's when their brains were developing. It's a big risk. Again, parenting or the family unit. You see, the family is a system, and if one cog in the system, that is maybe the parent, one of the parents is drinking, or maybe there's a dysfunctionality, maybe these kids are not going to school, there is violence, that predisposes this family, the members, the siblings, or the young kids to addiction. If alcohol is readily available in the family, then these kids will most likely adopt what they are seeing, because kids learn not by hearing what you are saying, because that's what parents think. They tell the kids, Mimi Skuni, I don't drink, or I drink and I have no problem with it, but I'm telling you not to drink. But these kids are noting that when you drink, you get happy and you become jovial, maybe. So that's what they will do. And that is where our parenting is going wrong. The society we are growing in, or we are raising our kids in, has come to accept most addictive behaviors as normal. Gambling, betting, that's where now the government is getting most of the revenues from. So betting is normal. Radio stations, TVs, they are advertising or promoting gambling. So the environment, where the environment is a risk factor. There are other issues like mental health conditions. Somebody who has maybe bipolar 1 or bipolar 2, or even schizophrenia, is more predisposed to become addicted, because when they start using these substances, unknowingly they are numbing maybe the elevated nature of their conditions. They are numbing the pain they might be having, the emotional turbulence they might be going through when maybe they are suffering from manic or depressive episodes of bipolar, for instance, or when they have issues that they can't control, or when they have emotional outbursts or anything like that. When they smoke weed, for instance, or when they go for sex, they are calmed down, and they don't know, so they continue doing it because it's pleasurable, like we were saying. So at the end of the day, they are more likely to become addicted as compared to people who don't have such mental health conditions. So those are just some of the risk factors. Yeah.
So when did you realize that you needed help, that you were now getting addicted?
To sex? Wow, that's a good question. So many times. You see, in a brothel, Naima, I don't know whether you know how a brothel. I hope you don't know. I hope you. I even hope the producer doesn't know. I hope none of you knows how a brothel works. This is a place where you find women lined up, and you pick a woman, and then there's a room there where you go and have sex. So the moment you are queuing to get into that room, and you are queuing with a woman here, a stranger, a woman you don't know, at that point, so many times, I used to ask myself, what am I doing? And the woman is knocking on that, and maybe even shouting. You know, they don't care mostly because they are high on drugs. And she's shouting, asking the other woman to finish up. They also have kids to raise. And the kids are being raised by my money. And she is scantily dressed. You know, at that point you start realizing, oh yeah, I have a problem. Or when you find, or I used to find myself maybe waking up in a brothel, I don't even have shoes. They have stolen from me. I remember one time I came from one of the brothels near Odion without shoes. So many instances. There was even one time I was writing on Twitter today where I stayed in a brothel for, I said 2 days, but I think it was more than 2 days because I'm drinking and I'm sleeping, waking up, going to the rooms with the ladies. So they were even fighting over me because I remember one telling the other, no, it's my turn. Wewe umeshughulikiwa. We also have kids to educate. And there I was, just high as a kite, and I can't even remember what I used to do in the rooms. Sometimes I would just go and sorry to say, I would just go and look at it. I would just tell her, please undress, and then I would look at it and ask her, how much do you want? Talking about it sounds like fun, but actually when you go back and sit down, you ask yourself, what was I doing? The number of times I've woken up with women I don't know, the number of times they have stolen from me, the number of times I've woken up wearing a CD, a condom, and I don't even know what happened, and I don't even know whether I was sleeping in a goat or a cow or a woman. It's traumatic. I normally tell people that I used to sell stuff to drink, to get money to drink, but it was even also for sex, because I would look for cheap sex. I knew how to get cheap sex, especially in this Nairobi. River Road, there are even places where you don't even need to go to a room. You do it behind a bus, and I remember even once I was arrested while doing it.